Katie here from the Scrappy Sisters, and I am up today with a hop, a Multiphoto Monday Hop. And the photo you saw at the start was our inspiration, and that was actually chosen by Miranda Weber. And so we don't really celebrate fall, as you call it in America, or autumn here in Australia. It's not kind of a thing that we do. And so I took inspiration from the red and white, I think they were tents in the image, and I'm using this cut file from Confessions of a Paper Addict. I think it's called Mandela. I should have looked that up before we started, but I didn't. And so I will have a link to that cut file in my description box. But I'm using that cut file. I just cut it out on white paper, and I didn't back it or anything like that because it was quite a busy cut file, and I thought it might kind of tone down a little bit the red and white striped paper, because obviously that paper is quite full on. I picked it because it is quite full on, and I thought that that would work well, because obviously it ties into that red and white stripe, but it is full on. I am using, what's this collection? Is it Cool Kid? Yeah, Cool Kid. It's from Crepe Paper. It's an older collection, and I think they had maybe a boy and a girl version. I'm not sure, but this is, I guess, what you would call the boy version, if you like to label things that way. And so I am using this collection because I haven't used it before, and I had it in my stash, and I thought I would give it a whirl. The red and white stripe paper isn't from that collection. That is actually a Stampin' Up paper that I had in my stash, and I knew I had a red and white stripe, so I wanted to pull it out. It's actually a Christmas paper, which you'll notice in a minute because I flip it upside down to stick it down on a border or another 12 by 12 piece of paper. And I've got these photos, so obviously it's Multiphoto Monday, so I wanted to make sure I had a layout with multiple photos. I think the definition, or Becky's definition of multiphoto, is more than 2 photos, I think. So just to be on the safe side, I went with this layout, which has 4 photos. And they are a series of photos that are all of the same thing, and it is actually documenting, I say it's the first time my son had food. Technically it's not. It's the second, because earlier on the day that these photos were taken, we actually went to see the speech pathologist at the Royal Children's Hospital for him to get the all clear to start on solids. As you know, he had a problem with his esophagus. When he was born, he had to have surgery to repair it. So the food situation is going to be a slow journey for us. And so he was given the all clear to start puree. So he's 6 months old in these photos. We weren't able to start any form of solids before 6 months. And then at the moment, even now, so he's almost 9 months old, we're still on what you would call 4-month puree, or really soft, very smooth puree. But we see the speech pathologist again in November, and yeah, hopefully we get to move up to slightly more textured food. What they're just waiting to see is if he can swallow okay. So if his esophagus is actually able to push food down into his stomach. Obviously when it's puree or liquid, he doesn't need to do much work to swallow that. But as foods get thicker with more texture and more lumpier, his body and he needs to work at actually swallowing and seeing if the muscles of his esophagus will work properly. So that's where we're at there. As you can see here, it's Christmas paper, but I'm covering this side up because it's too busy for me anyway to use for cards or anything like that. So I am mounting this on some wood grain paper. Now, I don't actually think this wood grain paper was from the Cool Kid collection either. To be honest, I think it's one, again, that I had in my stash, and it might have been from a paper pad, and it might have been from a Maggie Holmes open book paper pad. Potentially. I'm not really 100% sure. Pretty sure it was just in my pile of paper. So I'm trying this new thing where, if I can, I try to use one piece of paper from my stash every time I do a layout. So I've got like mini kits, or some of them are not so mini, kits created that live beside my desk, and mainly they're collections together, and I try to use those and use them up. But that also means that I never use my stash. So I'm trying to kind of incorporate, 1 or 2 pieces of pattern paper from my stash into my layouts. Now, there's a couple of times I don't do that, and to be honest, it's mostly with the Cocoa Vanilla collections because they're just so pretty. But that is something that I'm trying to work on, just to work through the what I consider a mountain of paper, but what other people probably consider is a very modest paper stash. But I do have, for me, a decent amount of paper. It all fits in one 12 by 12 cube. Slightly more than one because I do have a couple of paper pads, 12 by 12 paper pads. I don't buy 12 by 12 paper pads very often, but when I do, yeah, I've got a couple there that I need to try and work through. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. So these photos are a series of photos of my son trying food for technically the second time, but really it was the first time because he only had a mouthful at the speech pathologist. She just wanted to check whether he could chew and swallow. And so they're kind of these series of photos where he started off happy, he had a little taste of the food and he thought it was okay, and then all of a sudden he gagged and made a funny face and didn't want a bar of it. So I thought it was extremely funny and I took photos because why wouldn't you? And so I'm documenting that and the series of photos as I work down the page. And I am going to work on my title soon, but I'm just going through the ephemera in the Cool Kid collection. Now, what I discovered with this ephemera, not so much in the chipboard, which is to the left of the screen there, but the actual ephemera pieces, they're all either large or all the smaller ones are words. So I didn't love it. To be honest, I didn't love it. I'm not sure how many layouts I'll be able to make with this. Hopefully enough to get rid of my stash. But I think it'll be challenging. Anyway, I am pulling a frame from the chipboard piece there. The chipboard, what do you call that? The chipboard sheet. Is it a sheet? Anyway, pulling a couple of frames from that. And then there's also a frame in the ephemera pack, which I'm going to use. And so I'm adding that down. So I just stuck the frame straight on. I didn't faff around. I knew I wanted my photos to go sort of down the middle of the page like that. So I didn't worry too much about placement. I just stuck things down. You know me. Don't overcomplicate it. Just stick it down. So I'm going to stick down my photos now before I work on where I'm going to put my title and also where I'm going to put my embellishment clusters. So I'm popping up a few of my photos. I'm mainly popping up that one because I didn't stick it down first before I stuck down the first photo. So it had to go over top of the first photo. And with the chipboard obviously meant that it needed some foam underneath it to pop it up so it would sit over top of the chipboard. And then that third photo I'm sticking flat. And then the fourth photo I will pop up on foam as well. So I'm just adding a couple of tags behind the third photo just because I don't really know why. I mean, the top photo and the bottom photo have a frame behind it, but I actually don't think I put anything behind the second photo. So there's no rhyme or reason. I just thought a couple of tags would look cute, so I added them. So sticking those down and then I will stick the photo flat down onto the layout. And so I think there's some imperfections in the cutting of this cut file, but I didn't want to cut it again. And I knew that I would just place my photo over top of where some of the file didn't cut properly. I've since kind of played around with my silhouette a bit more and I think I've got it working for me. So I know every machine is a little bit different. Every machine requires a little bit of TLC to make it work. And so for me, when I'm cutting more intricate designs, and probably for most people, I definitely need to slow my machine down and just sometimes do 2 passes, but definitely slow it down. Let the machine take its time. I need to stop being so impatient. And it works much better when I do that. So I didn't want to recut this one though. And this was also a cut file that Virginia from Confessions of a Paper Addict challenged me to use. It was a while ago. I just asked her, which cut files would you think I should use for a challenge? And she said this one and there was one other. Oh, I don't remember. Might have been the sheep, which I've also already used on a layout. And so I thought that was fun and that I would do it. So I've finally used it. I cut it out ages ago and I've finally used it. For my title, I decided I wanted something that kind of demonstrated that these photos go in a sequence and drew your eye kind of following the sequence of the photos. So my title actually says, "Mum, what is this?" with a question mark and an exclamation mark, because, you know, he starts off happy and then he gets less happy by the end of the photos. And I definitely wanted something that when you were looking at the layout kind of meant that you followed the photos in their right order. So by placing the title like that, you read the title, which means you look at each photo in the order that I had hoped that they would go in. So now I'm pulling out a couple of things from the chipboard and also the ephemera pack and just making a couple of clusters. So up the top I've used a arrow from the chipboard, and sorry, that is my son waking up. Let me turn the monitor down and he might go back to sleep while I finish this. And so I've added the chipboard, and I've added, well, I haven't yet added that word piece that says awesome, but I know I want to put something up the top there. And then down the bottom, I'm just trying to work on a cluster down there too. But as I said, all the pieces are so big, it's just not really working for me. So I'm trying to figure out what I can do to make it all sort of work. I thought about layering that piece, I think it says Hey Buddy, on top of another piece, but you couldn't really see the arrow, and that kind of defeated the purpose. So then I thought maybe I can put that down the bottom, and I didn't mind it down there, but I just felt like I needed something else. So I'm pretty sure I pull off a tag from the chipboard sheet. Yeah, I do. And so I'm just poking needed to get my pokey tool out to poke the hole out. So I'm sticking that down the bottom just to give something for those word strips to kind of anchor. And then I thought, oh, I didn't love the Hey Buddy one, so let's work through and see what's going to work. And so this little one that I think says Yay, and it's only a small piece, so I just grab a foam dot and pop that on, and then I put one that says Cool Kid up the top. And then I think I'm nearly done, but not quite. There's a few stars on the chipboard sheet, so I decided to pull those off and add them onto the layout. They are very difficult to get off, and I actually end up peeling off a layer of the chipboard, so the sticky part ends up staying in the chipboard sheet, and I peel off the star. Not deliberately, it just was too hard to get out the really small pieces, so I end up having to get my glue and to stick down a few of those. So you can see here, a couple of them, particularly the smaller ones, need the glue because I end up peeling basically the chipboard in half, which is fine. It doesn't affect the look of it. It's just a pain. To be honest, I probably should put glue on the back of my chipboard anyway, because I don't know how long they'll last without it, but that's okay. I was flipping through an album from a few years ago the other day, and I went, oh, I need to re-glue some of that stuff. So yes, I would say it definitely probably needed glue, but when you're in the middle of a layout, that's not something I think about. So I've added stars to a few spots, and then I actually go and grab my wood veneer stars. I've got a whole tub of those, and I've got some smaller ones, so I'm just digging through. I took out the bigger ones from the top so I could reach the smaller ones, and just placing a few of those around the layout, and then I'm going to stick those down. So as I mentioned, this is a hop organised by Becky from My Creative Life, and the way the hop works is we've got a whole list of people who are participating, but at the time of me filming this, I don't know exactly who's participating or not. So to hop along to the next person, what you need to do is go down to my description box and check out the link. It'll be right at the top, so you can't miss it. And just go and check out the link, and you'll be able to go along to the next person in line and watch their video, and then you'll be able to go through the hop and watch everybody's videos. I'll try to have everybody listed down below, but the next person after me will be right at the top, so it will be easy for you to click along and see the next person. But we've got quite a few ladies participating, and it was so much fun to get multiple photos on a layout, so definitely go and check it out. But I have finished, I'm pretty sure. I think I'm just thinking about if there's anything else that I need to add. I was thinking about some splatters, but I decided against it. I don't usually journal on my layouts, but I have actually started just writing a line or two. So that line that I wrote, I think it just says Link's first taste of food or something like that. Something really simple. But yeah, just so that people knew so when I look back, I remember that was Link's first taste of food. So this is the layout. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you hop along to the next person, and we'll see you in the next video. All right, guys, bye.